Coronation Street have been paying tribute to the actress Anne Kirkbride, who's died after a short illness. She played the character Deirdre for more than 40 years. William Roach, one of her on-screen husbands, described her as a loving and vibrant person who would be greatly missed. Our arts correspondent David Silito is at Granada Studios in Manchester. David.
Behind me, of course, the Rovers return. Next to it, number 1 Coronation Street, the home of Ken and Deirdre. So much has happened on these cobbles, and Anne Kirkbride was at the very heart of what were some of the most watched moments in British TV history.
I hate this dump, I hate the job, and I hate... Deirdre!
Deirdre's just been part of life for many of us.
I don't want it at all.
Anne Kirkbride was 17 when she first took on the role.
I was down here for an audition for something. But they said, while you're here, just nip over to the Coronation Street office because they're looking for someone to do 3 lines in the street.
Same again?
No, not for me, thanks, Jimmy. I have to be off.
Oh, so soon?
Those 3 lines turned into the role of a lifetime.
I just don't want to make a fool of myself.
There were a number of on-screen relationships, but the heart of it was Ken and Deirdre, the Barlows.
Very tough. Really, really tough. Actually, just walking in here now, it's very difficult because all of us wanted to carry on filming today. That's a natural feel for Annie's sake and all our sakes, but when it came to it, we couldn't do it.
Today, outside the Barlows' house, a moment of reflection from the fans.
What was it you liked about Deirdre?
Oh, she's a character, wasn't she? We could relate to her as ourselves.
I think that realism is a key part to it, and that's why people seem tending to love her so.
I actually met her a couple of times in real life, and yeah, I liked her very much.
OK, Deirdre, come on. What are you doing?
The prison episodes provoked words of support from the Prime Minister. These were some of British TV's most watched moments.
Why did you put the phone down on me?
The love triangle with Mike Baldwin, the crowd at Old Trafford, had to be kept up to date.
And it flashed up on the screen at Old Trafford, and it said, Deirdre goes back to Ken, and they all went, boo, boo.
Deirdre.
Anne's real-life marriage began with this on-screen romance. She had her struggles, cancer, depression, but she was always grateful for Deirdre. The ups and downs, those glasses, the street has lost one of its stars.
I'm going to miss her, definitely.
Anne Kirkbride, who died yesterday.
It was so woven into the national fabric, Tony Blair affectionately ordered his Home Secretary to investigate the case of the Weatherfield One. For 44 years, Anne Kirkbride portrayed the turbulent life and times of Deirdre Barlow in Coronation Street. William Roach, her on-screen husband Ken Barlow, spoke movingly tonight to our reporter Damon Green of a friend and colleague who was always loving, always happy.
Millions loved her, sharing her everyday dramas, her tragedies and triumphs. Now she's gone. Those closest to her don't know how they'll cope.
It's the whole thought that she isn't around anymore is the hard thing. And coming in here, we've had rows, we've shouted, we've argued, we've been violent with each other, we've been cross with each other, but we've laughed. And oh boy, have we laughed.
Ken! Do something! What a shot!
For generations of viewers, Anne Kirkbride wasn't just a familiar face, she was family. And for many of her fans, the loss and the pain are very real.
Anne was a part of their lives. What words of comfort do you have for them?
All I can say is that on the personal level, we miss her so much, so much. But also, Deirdre was an iconic Coronation Street character, and people who love the street will have the same feelings.
The Coronation Street set today deserted, work suspended so the cast and crew could grieve. The show must go on, they say, but not today.
Work is difficult. We all wanted to carry on today, and we all came in and intended to carry on today, but we couldn't. Just walking on this set, the memories, it's too much.
For 40 years and more, this street has echoed to the passions of a woman's life. The anger, the laughter and the love. Deirdre may have been a fictional character, but those who knew Anne Kirkbride say the laughter and the love were real. The laughter and the love, they hope, will live on.
One of Annie's catchphrases was, "I love you." She used to say it to everybody. "I love you." So we've kind of all been saying that today, but that was a thing that Annie was very fond of saying, so it seems appropriate to say, "Annie, I love you."
It's going to be bleak. It's going to be very bleak. But her presence is so... it's here, you can feel her, and we'll always feel her presence.
Has described the actress as an angel following her death. Bill Roach, who plays Ken Barlow, says he's been blessed to have had the pleasure of working alongside Anne Kirkbride. Our arts and entertainment correspondent Lucy Cotter looks back at the 60-year-old's Corrie career, which has spanned more than 40 years.
Jelly shouldn't run, it should wobble.
This was classic Deirdre Barlow and the last time Coronation Street fans would see her on screen. After 40 years of drama...
No, but I do know, and I'm leaving you, and it's as simple as that.
4 weddings, a stint in prison, and the most famous specs in soap.
No, I don't regret a minute of it.
It was confirmed last night that the actress who brought Deirdre to life, Anne Kirkbride, died after a short illness.
I am so sorry.
You're always sorry! We've had rows, we've shouted, we've argued, we've been violent with each other, we've been cross with each other, but we've laughed, and oh boy, have we laughed, always with Annie. Even in the midst of shouting and crying, there would be a laugh. That's what she was about, Annie. She loved life.
Anne Kirkbride first appeared as Deirdre in Coronation Street in 1972. As her character blossomed, so did her popularity among her fans. In 1981, more people tuned in to watch Deirdre and Ken tie the knot than watch the royal wedding between Charles and Diana. 2 years later, millions were captivated by her affair with factory owner Mike Baldwin.
Traces either, just yourself.
It isn't like that.
Well, you could have fooled me.
Do you think I wanted it to happen? Do you think I wanted this? Because you're so bloody stupid.
But it was 1998 which brought the plotline that really made her name.
Do you find the defendant guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
Deirdre's imprisonment was front-page news, and the Free Weatherfield One campaign captured the public's imagination so much so the Prime Minister Tony Blair got involved.
I didn't do any of it.
Off-screen, the actress faced many of her own real-life dramas. In 1993, she was diagnosed with throat cancer. Later, she suffered with depression. And last year, Anne supported William Roach throughout his trial for alleged sexual offences. She left the show in October on extended leave and was due back this month.
She was such a lovely woman. The character, as of course was the actress, I think really in the history of Coronation Street, one of the all-time greats, and really one of the best-loved characters we've ever had.
Filming on the set of Coronation Street has been cancelled today. The cast and crew will be joined by Anne's many fans in remembering a unique and unforgettable character. Lucy Cotter, Sky News.
Annette Bening is recognized as one of our best actresses. After years of training on stage, she's appeared in a number of movies, including The American President and now The Siege. She's also married to actor Warren Beatty and the mother of 3 children. Here's a conversation recorded in Los Angeles earlier this week. Tell me about Elise Craft and what attracted you to her, and how do you sort of figure out how to get inside this kind of person?
I think the first thing that attracted me most about her was how lonely and alone she was, because so many female characters are written in relation to other people.
Yeah.
So this was a woman whose dilemma was within herself. She had flaws. She's very imperfect. She's made bad decisions. She's compromised herself, slept with the wrong people. She has a really interesting series of secrets. And the more secrets a character has, sometimes the more interesting it can be. And once I started getting into the research of it, I mean, I really, first of all, I had to know for myself, do these women really exist? Are there CIA case officers who work overseas and recruit people to get information and help train people, and all the things that my character's involved with, and in fact there are.
And you found one you could talk to?
I did. I found a very interesting woman who was extremely helpful to me, very kind and very open about her personal life, which was really very important for me to know about. I wanted to know what it was like to be in the position of recruiting basically a snitch, which is one of your primary jobs as a case officer. You're giving money to somebody, and you must give them money, or you cannot put them as a notch on your belt as a recruit. Getting someone basically to betray someone else to give you information, what's that like? What does that do to you as a human being? And also, what is it like? I mean, surely these people who work undercover have the same needs that we do in terms of relationships, and what if you're single? And what if you're working in some foreign city and you meet somebody that you really like? When can you tell them who you really are? And there's a whole series of, there's a whole protocol in the CIA about what you're supposed to do and when you're supposed to contact your boss and let them know. And anyway, it was a fascinating character.
In this film, the relationship with Denzel, because you're drawn together by a central issue, which is the threat of terrorism, but also you come at it with a different perspective than he does, playing an FBI agent. Now, what's that? How do you see this issue differently from the way he sees it?
Well, the CIA and the FBI have a history of sort of being at odds with each other.
Jurisdictional fights.
Right, and the FBI being law enforcement, wanting to catch the bad guys and put them away, and the CIA wanting to collect information. And in the World Trade Center bombing, after what happened became clear, there was a lot written about this enormous fight that went on between the FBI and the CIA, and the FBI felt, had they had the information that the CIA had about some of these people, they might have been able to circumvent the bombing. So this argument that goes on between Denzel and myself is really very much a part of what goes on between the CIA and the FBI as we speak.
Take a look at this. This is where he comes in on you when you've just captured and you're an Arab and you've hidden him in the basement of a house, and you have sworn to him that about your role. Take a look. Here is that clip from Siege.
If you guys hadn't blown the surveillance, we'd have been able to follow the money. What do you say, Khalil? You would have let us write to your friends, wouldn't you?
What friends?
What's your take on the controversy about this? I mean, as I pick up the newspaper this morning, there is Edswick, the director, talking about what he was trying to do, and there's some Arab Americans who are saying this is unfair because it slanders us and makes it appear that all Muslims are, in fact, terrorists.
I don't think that's a fair criticism. I don't think the movie's anti-Arab. I wouldn't have done it if I thought it was. The movie is about terrorism, okay? Islamic extremism exists. Islam a religion of many, many different people, and obviously this is just a fringe element. But if you're going to make a movie about terrorism, then obviously you have to show that. But I don't think it's fair to say that the movie is anti-Arab. The thing that interested me, and I think should interest all of us about why Arab terrorism is visiting us in the way that it has, is our own involvement with some of the people who are, well, for instance, with the World Trade Center bombing, we were involved, the CIA, our CIA was involved in covert activity in Afghanistan. We gave them millions, billions of dollars. We gave them arms.
They
we
might not have
trained
won
them.
without our support.
Okay,
I mean,
so these are the
and
same...
their own bravery.
Right, okay, so we brought some of these people back to our country. And from that group, a small group became the people that masterminded the World Trade Center bombing. That is sort of what we're talking about in this movie. I don't think the movie is anti-Arab. I think one of the most powerful scenes is when they're rounding up Arabs and putting them in a stadium. It's a horrendous scene. It's certainly shown to be a horrendous scene that's not celebrated. Is there anti-Arab sentiment in this country that's unfair and horrific? Yes. It's there. But I don't think the movie inflames that.
And in fact, it raises the consciousness of the fact that we have in our country, because of misleading labels during World War II, with what we did with the Japanese, the incarceration of Japanese who were loyal American citizens, but just because of their ethnic origins were put away in concentration.
Right, it's about fear. I mean, there was a tremendous atmosphere of fear. I was just talking about that with some friends. I was visiting San Diego, where my parents live, and they were talking about the atmosphere. People were afraid. So the movie does talk about that. What happens when things get very scary and people feel threatened and they feel their children are threatened? What are we as a country willing to do?
Having completed this and looking ahead, is this the perfect time for you? I mean, to look at you and to know that you've got these 3 great kids, this wonderful husband. You are now, having taken some time off, acting again. You're going to be on the stage here in Los Angeles at the Geffen Theater. You've got several films that are about to come out or haven't come out. Do you look at, sort of, as you approach 40, this is the way it ought to be? I mean, you've got the balance that you've dreamed of having.
I do feel very, very proud. I turned 40 this year, and the deepest feeling was being so proud of my kids and having had 3 children. There were a lot of different things I could have done with my life during these last few years, and I really wanted to have children, and I'm so proud of myself that I did that.
That it turned out the way it did.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's a lot to have children and to parent well. I mean, it's a big, big responsibility. So yeah, I'm very, very proud of that, and I feel I'm proud of this movie. I like my work in it. I can look at it and be satisfied with it, which, you know, for a long time for me, watching my own movies, I was very hard on myself. I still am, but I'm a little bit easier on myself than I used to be.
Are you hard on yourself for this performance at all? I mean, do you look at this film where you're getting great reviews and say...
Oh, sure. Of course there are moments I think, I wish I could do that again. I think I could probably do it better. Oh, absolutely. There's no way you can ever look at yourself and...
During the time that you took off, how many years? 3 years? In which you really...
No, I don't think it was that long. No.
Did you have any reservation about, my God, my career? I mean, what you could be... Or was this the sheer joy?
Oh, no, it's not just sheer joy. No, there's a lot involved in being pregnant, having little kids. No, yes, there are moments. Absolutely, sure, there are moments I think, oh, what about that movie that I didn't do, or what about that? You know, what would have happened? But they're not the most powerful part. That's once in a while those kind of fears come up.
Did people come to you and say, don't do it, don't take this time off because you are at a perfect place because you have just gotten traction in terms of doing all the things that you want to do?
No one said that to me. I've always wanted kids. I wanted kids before I wanted to be an actor. I wanted kids since I was tiny. So the irony did strike me, right, as I was ready to start, that I was in a place where I had more freedom and more choices. I mean, the idea that I would be offered a Broadway play when it was first happened to me, I was stunned, you know, that I would ever turn down a Broadway play. But that's, you know, that's the irony of life, isn't it? So I'm a little more used to that, and I feel very lucky. I feel very, very lucky to be able to do both.
You said once that, and something that I so identified with, you said once that you couldn't do what you're doing and not necessarily as well as you want to do it if you weren't happy in your personal life. Because personal life feeds the work.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be pretty sad for me if I was opening a movie and then after the movie was open, whatever happened with the opening of the movie, I didn't have a life that was equally as challenging and interesting to me. I do think that's true about me. Happy is sort of a dangerous word, but yeah, I mean, I think that if I'm able to pursue and be interested in my life outside of acting, it informs my acting, I hope.
Yeah. The more interested you are in the life you live, the better it will inform your acting.
Well, yeah, I hope so. I mean, I take acting very seriously. I really love it. I always have. I feel very lucky that I have that passion. I've always, you know, since I got interested in the theater, wanted to be an actor, and I don't find that feeling diminishing. But I think that if I had only that in my life, I would be a really kind of cranky person. I don't think I don't think I'd handle it very well.
Where did the passion for acting come from?
I don't really know. All I know is I went to a play, and when I was a kid, and yeah, I was in junior high. My class was taken to the local theater in San Diego, which is the Old Globe Theater, and I saw a Shakespeare play. And there was something about the live theater, and the actors, and the language and their own, they seemed so human but sort of more than human, and the language seemed very identifiable, yet it was poetry, and there was something about it that just knocked me out. And so I started getting involved in it in school. My sort of progression was a sort of modest and kind of plodding one. I mean, I started doing plays and I got more involved and I liked it a lot. So when I went to college, I studied theater and kept doing plays and kept doing plays, and then I did Shakespeare festivals, and then I got into a professional training program, and then I got into a repertory company. So it was all about the theater. You know, I didn't do movies till I was almost 30.
It seems with you to know something about your career, whether it's at the Conservatory in San Francisco or to know what you have done and to go to Broadway and then come back. It was the love of the joy you got from acting. There was something about acting rather than simply being a star, rather than being an actor. Someone once said to me, there's a great difference between people who want to write and people who want to be a writer. So there may be a difference between people who want to act and people who want to be an actor. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, that's great. I like that a lot. Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense to me, because I say that to my kids, you know, I say, look, I was an actor before I was famous, and I will always be an actor. I will always act. And I enjoyed it. You know, when you just said to me about my life, and do you feel like it's so great right now? Yes, I do. But you know what? I liked my life before, too. Yeah. Before I had children and before I did movies. I really loved being in the theater. I was really challenged by it. And so that period of my life I don't see as being less than what I have now.
But so many people have a hard time finding the balance between family and career in terms of the joy of what they want to do and having the satisfaction of a great personal life. The balance, especially harder for women, I think, because women care more about the balance and care more about serving the balance. Don't you?
Yeah, and it's also just an enormous physical experience to go through. Pregnancy, getting pregnant, being pregnant, having children, nursing a baby. I mean, the whole thing is so big. I don't know. In my own life, I think I've sort of worn out the idea to myself in terms of the way I think about it, striking a balance. Yeah. Although, of course, that is what I'm trying to do. But, you know, I really am glad that my kids have me because I love what I do so much. I want that for them. Yeah, you do. I mean, if there's anything I want more than anything for my kids, it's having the desire to really do something with their lives that they love. So that's the thing I say to them, you know, when they're mad at me because I'm going to work or they're complaining. I say, look, you know, I love being a mom, but you know, I really love what I do, and it's important that I do this. And so I think, I mean, so I hope it all kind of works out in the long run.
I think I read this, that one of the things you admired about Warren Beatty, your husband, was the passion he had and the energy he had for his work.
Yeah, he works harder than anybody I know. He exhausts everyone around him because he cares more, he works harder. You know, and that's what people forget about somebody like Warren, is just the hard work, the hard work, the time that he puts in.
And the fact that there's some correlation, if you do what you do well, by how hard you work and the passion you have for the work and the energy you're willing to devote to it.
you know, it's like the great dancers. The great dancers make it look like they're not doing anything.
Exactly.
And so you forget about all the hours of sweat, and I think Warren's a little bit like that.
Yeah. I'll come back to him, but the notion of acting, which fascinates me, because I get up in the morning and I think about this morning, about you, and trying to live inside your life and say what it is that makes you tick, and why this role, and how do you get ready for that role, you know, and this notion of someone who takes time off to have kids because it's something you had to do, and then you're back acting and you've got this role that's satisfying for you and you're doing all these other things. That's what I do, is to get inside your life. You have this joy of getting inside a whole bunch of lives too, who happen to be characters. So in this character, who is Elise Craft, you try to understand what makes her tick. That would be the joy of it in me, if somehow you can bring your craft to getting inside of somebody and present to an audience somebody that's not you, because you understand her and figure out what it is that makes her, the character, interesting.
And maybe connect on some intuitive level. I mean, the best acting is done from the gut without a lot of thought. It's instinctive. You're just working on an impulse, and you're not thinking about what you're doing. You're not choreographing it. You're not planning it. You're hopefully surprising yourself along with everybody else in the room when the camera's rolling. That's the hardest thing to do. But the thing you can do, and the thing that Stanislavski is sort of the guy who invented modern acting, was you can feed your unconscious. You can feed this well that you're hopefully drawing from in some sort of spontaneous way. So that in the moment that you're trying to find something, something spontaneous happens, not something that you thought you sat and planned, but that you do the reading and you do the research and you do the daydreaming and you do all the stuff that you want to do that you're talking about, that will hopefully put you into the moment where they say action and the camera's rolling and the other person's there, and then something just happens because of all the thinking and the daydreaming and the reading and or the whatever it is that you're doing to get you into the character.
How long did it take before you knew you could do this? You had something that you could handle this, that this was the place for you to be, acting?
Well, I think it's something you always constantly question.
Do you really?
Or to a degree. Yeah, I guess I've been doing movies for almost 10 years, so maybe now I can say, yeah, I've done a few movies, so maybe I know what I'm doing. But yeah, I was reluctant. I remember when I got my equity card, which is the actors union on the stage, then I felt I could finally really say I'm an actress. But I was really reluctant. I wanted to really earn that for myself, that ability to say, you know, someone says, what do you do? And you say, I'm an actress. You know, I was really proud of that when I finally got to that point. But now I'm more confident than I used to be, that if there's something that interests me, if there's a script or a story that interests me, that maybe I'll figure out a way to...
Would you do it at all different than the way you've done it?
No. No. No, I'm really grateful that I was reluctant to come to Los Angeles, which I was, and I was a West Coast theater actress, and I was working in San Francisco, and I would kind of come down here and look around a little bit, and people would say, well, your hair's too long, and your tooth is chipped, and and I would say, you're right, I don't know what I'm doing here, I'll go away.
I'll go back.
They would say, you know, look, all you have to do is go into these interviews and be yourself, and that just terrified me, the idea of, I said, if you give me a script and you give me a scene to read, I'm fine. That I can do. But the idea of going in and just talking to people scared me.
You went to New York and then came back. You didn't stay, even though you got a Tony nomination.
I went to New York, yeah. I started doing plays in New York, and then I started getting movies and coming out here to do movies and going back and forth.
Okay, come back. And you know, it's a new experience for me. Let me come back to you. Here is the other thing about acting that always interests me. And did you resist films because, or did it just, when it came, you were ready for it?
No, I didn't resist it. I just thought first of all, I thought I would be so big and loud. I mean, I thought, you know, I was afraid. When I was in the theater, they would talk about camera acting as though it was this other thing, and that if you were on camera, you would be too big and loud, and you have to tone it down and be smaller and all this stuff. So I felt like I wouldn't know what to do. I didn't know about marks. I didn't know about, what it was that I was afraid of. I just thought I didn't know how to do it. So it was just an experience. But I went, when I would go to see movies that were really moving and powerful, I would think that is incredible, the amount of people that can be reached by doing a picture. And that interested me. And then I went the next step of, well, someone has to do that. Someone has to be up there making those movies. I wonder if I could do it. And as I said, when I thought about coming to LA, I never felt like I knew how to do that. I didn't, you know, I didn't feel like I was hip. I don't know what it was. I couldn't picture myself here. So I thought, well, if I went to New York, maybe I could get a play, and then people would see me in a play, and maybe I could get into movies that way.
When it came, did you enjoy the film experience as much as you'd enjoy the theater?
I do. The more I do it, the more I enjoy it. The more intrigued I am by the idea of working with a camera and trying to find a moment and trying to find something truthful and honest and revealing and whatever it is, simple, than ever. I become more and more interested the more I do it.
Have Warren and the relationship with him made a difference in terms of how you see this profession at all? I mean, just the fact that you two were together and you talk about the craft of acting, you talk about movies, does that... has he influenced your ideas about...
I don't know so much about acting. I like to talk about acting. I'm interested in it. I study it. I like to talk about actors. I mean, but he's a very good actor, but he's not an actor who talks a lot about it. Acting.
And his experience is different than yours in terms of the amount of training you had.
Yeah.
And then he came into it very early.
Yeah.
And got going and learned, I suspect, on the job.
Yes, he did have a great acting teacher. He studied with Stella Adler.
Oh, that's right.
But yeah, he went to 1 year of college and quit. I mean, we started out in very different ways. And then he was like a movie star when he was 20, I don't know, early 20s.
As he says, I've been famous as long as I can remember.
That's right. So, you know, we had a sort of a whole different sort of starting out process as actors. So.
Yeah. When you got involved in this thing and got involved in this business of acting, did you have somebody that was a role model for you? Did you say, man, there's the person? Was there someone that spoke to you more than anyone else? Was it Katharine Hepburn? Was it someone like that? Was it some stage actor?
Right. There was a wonderful actress, director, theater person named Eva Le Gallienne, who I studied quite a bit. She wrote a number of autobiographies, and she had a lot of guts, and she created her own theater during the Depression, and I was very much inspired by her. At first, I was more inspired by theater actresses, and I sort of, somebody like Maggie Smith would really interest me. But I was also interested in somebody like Liv Ullmann, for instance, and also the way she wrote about acting and talked about acting interested me a lot. And I admired the films that she made, and that's somebody who I would say was a big influence.
What do you miss most about not being on stage now that you like film more and more?
The athletic, physical aspect of it. It's much more like being an athlete than movie acting. Movie acting, you're sitting around all the time. You're sitting in your trailer, and then you're sitting in the chair, or whatever it is. So being on the stage is such a big physical experience, to move around on the stage and produce the sound and all of that stuff. I think that's part of it. And it's also you go from the whole journey in one night, in 2.5 or 3 hours. You go from the beginning of the story to the end, and you go through that enormous arc every time you do it. That's a big difference. You know, also with movies, you're dealing with machines all the time. You're always dealing with, that's the business, is the lights and the camera and the stuff and all the semis and all that.
And hurry up and wait and hurry up and wait.
I mean, anytime you walk on a movie set, you think, who are all these people and what are they doing? Well, there's a lot of technology. And so I'm looking forward to not having to wait for the machines and being able to, in the theater, everybody else goes away and it's just the actors.
Would you ever want to teach?
Yes. Oh, yes. I taught once when I was at the American Conservatory Theater one summer. Instead of doing a Shakespeare festival, which was what I normally did, I taught. And I worked so hard at it. I'm not sure why, but I did. I'd just been trained myself, and I just cared. You know, if somebody was doing a scene, I would have to read the play because I would have to comment on it. And I put so much into it, and I loved it. I got so much out of it. I really enjoyed it. So I would love to teach, and I've thought a lot about how to do that with my life, how to find a way to teach regularly, which I haven't found a way to do yet with my little kids. But when my kids get older, I'd really like to do that.
They're not at the age they talk about what they want to do with their life, though.
Oh, sure.
Are they really?
Oh, yeah. Kids talk about that from the time they can talk. Knights in shining armor, you know, art. My daughter talks a lot about art, being an artist of different kinds, and I hope she doesn't mind me saying that. You know, being a firefighter, being a knight in shining armor, my son talks about. Yeah, they talk about it, sure.
They don't go on location with you, or do they?
Sure, yeah.
They do?
Oh, yeah, they do, yeah.
Because you wouldn't want to be without them.
Right, I haven't left them yet. Yeah, they come along, and they're pretty good about it, you know, and they're used to it. They're used to traveling, and when we were not traveling as much, they say, well, why haven't we gotten on a plane, you know? You know, that's what they know. And yeah, they are invited to come. I mean, there are days they're not invited, but...
Talk about roles. The role you played in American President, how did you see that?
How did I see it?
Yeah, I mean, who was that character, and what did you want to convey from that character?
I thought that she, I mean, I didn't think of her, in general, actually, anymore. I used to think about acting as being the character and then there's me.
Yeah.
I don't think about, I don't know if it makes a big difference to, certainly probably doesn't make a difference to anybody else, but to me personally, I do that less. I think more about, okay, now, the starting point is this is me.
Yeah.
Okay.
I am, wait, this is me, is that different than I am?
Well, in other words, that's especially with something like American President, that's the premise of it. So I read up on whatever I felt like I had to know about in terms of being a lobbyist in Washington and all of that. But I think she was somebody who was you know, pretty simple.
Yeah, but strong.
Strong and passionate and informed, and really cared about her job and really cared about the issues that she was involved in. But in terms of, I don't think she was an extremely unusual kind of girl.
No.
That's the point of the story, isn't it? Is that she's just this, you know, girl who
does her
happens
job,
to
who
be
happens to find herself in a romance with the president.
Right.
And what's different about this is that he happens to be the president.
Right.
Grifters, Myra. A character you liked?
Oh yeah, that was great fun. I'm just glad Stephen Frears asked me to do it. I think Gina Davis turned it down. I'm not sure, but I think she might have. So thank you, Gina. She's a wonderful actress. I was probably lucky because I wasn't really known at that point. Yeah, it was a wonderful character to work on. I had a lot of fun working on the character, thinking about it. I watched a lot of Gloria Graham movies.
Yeah.
And
what does that give you?
I don't know, there was something about her that seemed right for this particular woman. It was a wonderful movie. It was a movie made for very little money, so we were shooting fast. It was sort of down and dirty, and there's a great freedom in that when you're shooting a picture and you have to keep going and you can't do a lot of takes and you're just moving on, and it was a wonderful experience, very liberating.
Bugsy.
Yeah.
The character there.
Well, great dialogue. You know, that movie was extremely well written. James Toback wrote Bugsy, and so much of what's good in that movie comes from great writing. And it was, you know, it was a very good team. Warren produced it with Barry Levinson. Barry Levinson directed it. So all around, it was just really a high-class group.
I asked Warren, as you may know, whether he would direct you. He said, would I direct Annette? There's nobody I'd rather direct, but I think there'd be a certain amount of agony involved. What did he mean by agony?
What did he mean by agony? On his part or my part?
I don't know.
Oh, no,
what would that mean?
Oh, he's a great director, isn't he?
But where would the agony come from?
Where would the agony? You're asking me a really hard question. Oh, well, it wouldn't be agony for me. I can say that. I've seen him direct actors, and before I may have met him, I don't know, but I remember I talked to Glenn Headley once. I just happened to meet her at a party, and she had done Dick Tracy with him, and she just said, "Look, he's the best director I've ever worked with." Actors love him. You know, he's an actor.
Because he cares, and because he's passionate, and because he's what?
He really respects actors. He really likes them, and he knows what it takes. because he's an actor. He knows what it takes to try to come up with the moment. And he's one of those people who somehow knows how to talk to actors without giving them the result, which is, you know, the sort of the thing that most people do, and it's understandable why.
Is he the most obsessive man you've ever met? Obsessive?
Probably. Or certainly one. You know what? I've known a lot of obsessive men. So yes, he's one of them. Yes.
Here's what he said. He said, but there'd be a certain amount of agony involved, but certainly great interest, he said. There's nobody. Are you enjoying this?
This is funny.
There's nobody I find more interesting than Annette. But the better question would be asked to her, whether she would put up with it.
That's a good question.
So I'm asking you, would you put up with it?
Yeah, I would put up.
You would?
Yeah. Yeah, because he's that good.
And he might get things out of you that no director had gotten out of you. Performance.
I suppose so. Yeah, he might. That's true. He might, actually. If the material was there to begin with, if the writing was there and the opportunities existed in the story, yeah, he might.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks, Charlie.
Annette Bening, back in a moment. Stay with us.